Hey, welcome to the Sunday preview for this 23rd Sunday of the year. It's the beginning of September, and we have a great gospel from the Gospel of Mark, and it's one of those times when the gospel is a very clear fulfillment of what was in the Old Testament reading from the prophet Isaiah. So let's take a look at that gospel, chapter 7 of St. Mark. And it says, "Again, Jesus left the district of Tyre and went by the way of Sidon to the Sea of Galilee and to the district of the Decapolis. And people brought him a deaf man who had a speech impediment, and they begged him to lay his hands on him. And Jesus took him off by himself, away from the crowd, and he put his finger into the man's ears, and spitting, touched his tongue. Then he looked up to heaven and groaned and said, 'Ephphatha,' that is, be opened. And immediately the man's ears were opened, and his speech impediment was removed, and he spoke plainly. He ordered them not to tell anyone, but the more he ordered them not to, the more they proclaimed it. They were exceedingly astonished, and they said, 'He has done all things well. He makes the deaf hear and the mute speak.'" And that by itself is a great miracle. No, Jesus is able to give hearing back to this deaf man and give speech back to him who was mute. And it's a fulfillment, really, of what Isaiah the prophet had said, that there'd be, with the coming of the Messiah, kind of a new creation, that all the evils and problems that we face here would be resolved by the Messiah, especially this blindness and this deafness and this muteness that we suffer from. And it's very clear in Isaiah that he's looking forward to that day when God would manifest his power. He says, Here is your God who comes with vindication and divine recompense. He comes to save you. And the eyes of the blind are open, and the ears of the deaf cleared, and their tongues will sing out. And this is exactly what Jesus is doing, kind of symbolically with this man with the affliction. The physical healing is really a suggestion of what can go on in all of us, right? Maybe we're not physically blind or physically deaf or physically mute, but we have that spiritually. We often have that blindness to the things of God. We're often deaf to the word of God, the commandments, or Jesus's word. We don't understand how to put the Beatitudes into practice in our lives or follow the example of Jesus. And very often, especially today in a cancel culture, we find ourselves mute, not even able to speak up about what we believe in our hearts, afraid to speak, right? Maybe we're physically able to, but spiritually we're intimidated. And Jesus gives us a remedy and a solution to that. He is the solution, and if we put our trust in him, and we open our eyes and we open our ears and we open our tongues, we'll be able to witness to Christ. And I think the gospel is inviting us to reflect on how much we allow ourselves to be blind and deaf and mute, and how much we ought to let ourselves be challenged by what Jesus does for us.